After 60, many of us start noticing that our memory isn't quite as sharp as it used to be. We might forget where we left the keys, struggle to recall the name of an old acquaintance, or even lose track of what we were about to say in the middle of a conversation. These little lapses often spark a worrying thought: could this be the early signs of Alzheimer's? And that concern is very real, since Alzheimer's is one of the leading causes of memory decline and loss of independence in older adults. What surprises many brain health experts, however, is that most of the damage to memory doesn't come from genetics or sudden life events. Instead, it often stems from very ordinary habits we repeat every day without realizing their impact. The good news is that this means we can change the course. By recognizing these 6 common mistakes and making timely adjustments, we can protect the brain, preserve our clarity of thought, and enjoy more years of independence and joyful living with our families. In today's video, we'll take a closer look at 6 everyday habits that many people over 60 accidentally fall into. He'll explain why they harm the brain, and more importantly, what better choices we can make to safeguard our memory. If you find this topic valuable, please remember to like the video, share it with your family and friends, and don't forget to subscribe so we can continue this journey together in future health discussions. And I'd love to ask you in your daily life, do you worry more about being forgetful or about having trouble concentrating? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your story might inspire and encourage many others. One of the habits that might seem harmless but can seriously damage memory is sitting too much and moving too little. After 60, many of us naturally spend more time resting, watching TV, reading the paper, or just sitting around at home. Of course, rest is important, but when rest turns into a sedentary lifestyle, the brain ends up paying the price. Research shows that long hours of sitting reduce blood flow to the brain, which means nerve cells don't get enough oxygen and nutrients. The brain is like a highly complex machine, and blood is the power supply that keeps it running. When that power supply weakens, important parts of the system start to slow down. The result is declining memory, poor concentration, and even shrinkage in brain regions linked to thinking and recall. It goes further than that. A sedentary lifestyle also promotes the buildup of beta-amyloid protein, the same sticky protein that forms plaques in the brains of people with Alzheimer's. When we move, the body produces enzymes that help break down and clear away beta-amyloid. But when we sit too much, that cleanup process slows down, leaving the brain more vulnerable to these toxic clogs. Another concern is the link between inactivity and insulin resistance. When muscles aren't being used, the body has a harder time managing blood sugar. Persistently high blood sugar damages the tiny blood vessels that feed the brain, raising the risk of dementia. This makes it clear exercise doesn't just benefit the heart and muscles, it's also one of the brain's strongest defenses. Picture the difference between 2 people of the same age. One makes it a habit to walk briskly for 30 minutes each day. Their body stays active, blood circulates steadily to the brain, and nerve cells receive the fuel they need. The other spends most of the day on the couch, moving little, with sluggish blood flow and more beta-amyloid building up in the brain. After just a few years, their memory and mental sharpness will look dramatically different. The encouraging news is that changing this habit doesn't require anything extreme. You don't need a gym membership or heavy workouts. Just 30 minutes of brisk walking around the neighborhood, some light yoga, or even everyday activities like gardening or house cleaning can wake up the body. Gentle but consistent movement is the key to protecting the brain. If we let the body sit idle for too long, the brain gradually weakens. But by adding small steps of movement into our daily routine, we can improve blood flow, keep brain cells flexible, and significantly lower the risk of Alzheimer's. Sitting too much is only one of the 6 common mistakes. Another dangerous habit is eating too much sugar and processed food, the silent enemy that attacks the brain every single day. Another mistake many people over 60 often fall into is consuming too much sugar and processed food. The sweet pastries, cans of soda, or convenient fast food meals may look harmless, but they are quietly damaging memory and brain health. When blood sugar stays high too often, the body has to release more and more insulin to keep it under control. Over time, this leads to insulin resistance, meaning the cells no longer respond well to insulin. The result is that glucose isn't used effectively, leaving the brain short of energy even when blood sugar is high. This is why scientists sometimes call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, because of the strong connection between blood sugar problems and cognitive decline. Sugar also drives chronic inflammation in the body. When low-grade inflammation happens constantly, the tiny blood vessels that feed the brain are easily damaged. This not only reduces blood flow to the brain, but also accelerates the buildup of beta-amyloid plaques. Chronic inflammation and oxidative stress work hand in hand, becoming a dangerous duo that plays a major role in the development of Alzheimer's. Processed foods like deli meats, sausages, packaged snacks, and canned goods make things even worse. They often contain trans fats and excess salt, which harm the heart and raise the risk of brain shrinkage. One large study found that people who ate the most processed foods had a much higher risk of dementia compared with those who ate mostly fresh, whole foods. Imagine a typical day for two people of the same age. One starts the morning with oatmeal and berries, enjoys a lunch of salmon salad with olive oil, and finishes with a dinner of vegetables, beans, and fruit. The other chooses a sweet pastry, soda, a sandwich with deli meat for lunch, and a frozen pizza for dinner. After several years, their brains will tell very different stories. The first person keeps sharper memory, while the second shows early signs of cognitive decline. The encouraging news is that the brain responds surprisingly quickly when we make positive dietary changes. By cutting back on added sugar and replacing processed items with fresh, nutrient-dense foods, inflammation goes down, insulin works better, and brain cells receive the fuel they need. The benefits reach beyond memory, giving the whole body more steady energy as well. Avoiding sugar and processed foods doesn't mean harsh dieting. It simply means making swaps water or herbal tea instead of soda, fresh fruit instead of pastries, a home-cooked meal with vegetables and fish instead of fast food. Small but consistent choices like these can make a tremendous difference for brain health in the years ahead. If too much sugar and processed food can silently undermine memory, another mistake that is just as dangerous is chronic sleep deprivation. One of the most silent yet damaging habits for memory after 60 is chronic lack of sleep. Many people believe that the older we get, the less sleep we need, or that a few hours of light, broken rest is good enough. But science has shown otherwise. Years of poor quality or shortened sleep can nearly double the risk of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. Sleep is not just downtime for the body, it's the brain's cleaning and repair shift. During deep sleep, the brain's glymphatic system kicks into high gear, flushing out waste products, especially beta-amyloid. This protein, when allowed to build up, forms sticky plaques that block communication between brain cells. Without enough sleep, this cleanup process is cut short, allowing beta-amyloid to accumulate over time, laying the groundwork for Alzheimer's. Beyond cleanup, sleep is also critical for strengthening memory. Scientists call this memory consolidation, the process where information and experiences from the day are transferred from short-term to long-term storage. Without enough rest, the brain struggles to organize and file memories, making it harder to recall new information and easier to forget old details. That's why after a sleepless night, so many people feel foggy, distracted, and forgetful. Chronic sleep loss also throws the stress hormone cortisol out of balance. When cortisol levels stay high for too long, they damage the hippocampus, the brain's memory hub and navigation center. This explains why people who live with chronic insomnia often feel not only exhausted, but also confused, forgetful, and less able to retain new details. In reality, there are many reasons why sleep gets shorter after 60. Some people deal with joint pain, others struggle with sleep disorders like sleep apnea, and many wake up often during the night to use the bathroom. Whatever the cause, ignoring poor sleep for years inevitably takes a toll on the brain. The good news is that better sleep is achievable without complicated steps. Keeping a regular sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up at the same time every day helps the body's internal clock stay on track. Avoiding phones, tablets, and TVs within an hour of bedtime is also key, since the blue light from screens suppresses melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. Simple nightly rituals like reading a few pages of a book, listening to gentle music, or sipping a warm cup of herbal tea can also make it easier to drift into deep, restorative rest. Research underscores how immediate the effects can be. A study published in Nature Neuroscience found that just one night of lost sleep was enough to increase beta amyloid levels in the brain. This means that every night of quality rest matters not just for the long haul, but for brain protection right away. Sleep deprivation is a hidden enemy of memory, and brushing it off only accelerates cognitive decline. But by prioritizing 7 to 8 hours of quality rest each night, we give the brain the chance to cleanse itself, reinforce memories, and preserve mental clarity. Still, sleep is only one piece of the puzzle. Another silent but dangerous factor from memory loss is poor control of blood pressure and blood sugar. That's the next mistake we need to address. One of the most common yet overlooked mistakes is neglecting to manage blood pressure and blood sugar. After 60, many people already live with conditions like hypertension or diabetes, but some stop taking their medication when they feel fine, or they skip regular checkups. This habit quietly damages memory and increases the risk of Alzheimer's. The brain relies entirely on a healthy network of blood vessels for nourishment. When those vessels are strong, oxygen and nutrients flow steadily, keeping nerve cells sharp. But when high blood pressure goes unchecked, vessel walls thicken, stiffen, and gradually build plaque. As blood flow weakens, damage begins in key areas, especially the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. High blood sugar has its own destructive path. When glucose levels stay elevated, the brain's tiny blood vessels suffer. At the same time, excess sugar fuels inflammation and oxidative stress, both of which accelerate the buildup of beta amyloid plaques. The hallmark of Alzheimer's? The link between type 2 diabetes and dementia is so strong that some researchers even refer to Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. What makes this especially dangerous is how quietly these conditions progress. Hypertension and diabetes often cause no obvious symptoms in their early stages. Someone may feel fine, while their brain's blood vessels are already under strain. Skipping checkups or stopping medication only increases the hidden risk of memory decline. The good news is that controlling blood pressure and blood sugar produces clear benefits for the brain. When blood pressure is steady, oxygen-rich blood nourishes brain cells. When glucose is controlled, inflammation and vessel damage decrease, giving memory a chance to stay sharp. In daily life, managing these numbers is not as complicated as it seems. Checking blood pressure at home several times a week, testing blood sugar regularly, and following a diet rich in leafy greens, fish, nuts, and whole grains while limiting salt and sugar can keep levels within safe range. Regular movement, even something as simple as brisk walking each day, helps both blood pressure and blood sugar improve. And for those prescribed medication, staying consistent is absolutely essential. Never stop on your own just because symptoms feel better. Picture the difference between two people of the same age. One monitors their numbers, eats wisely, stays active, and takes medications as directed. The other ignores checkups, enjoys salty and sugary foods, and remains sedentary. After a few years, their paths are clear. The first maintains sharper memory and avoids complications, while the second faces faster cognitive decline and higher risk of Alzheimer's. Managing blood pressure and blood sugar is not just about protecting the heart or avoiding diabetes complications. It's also a direct safeguard for memory. That's why neglecting this step is considered one of the brain's most silent and dangerous enemies. Next, well, look at another harmful habit that quietly chips away at memory, social isolation, and lack of meaningful connection. When people think about what harms memory, diet or sleep usually come to mind first. But what often surprises many is how strongly social isolation and limited interaction can affect brain health, especially after 60. Our memory and mental sharpness are nourished not only by food and exercise, but also by the daily connections we share with others. Science has shown that conversation and social engagement are among the most natural ways to stimulate the brain. Every chat, whether it's sharing laughter with a friend or exchanging a few words with family, forces the brain to process information, recall details, and respond quickly. In many ways, it's like a workout for the brain, keeping it flexible and resilient. On the other hand, when we live in isolation, rarely go out, and speak to fewer people, the brain slips into a passive state. The regions responsible for memory, language, and emotion are activated less often, and as a result, they decline faster. Large studies following thousands of older adults have found that those who remain socially isolated face a significantly higher risk of dementia compared to peers who stay socially active. Isolation doesn't just affect memory, it also raises the risk of depression, a condition closely tied to cognitive decline. When low mood lingers, levels of serotonin and dopamine in the brain drop, making it harder to focus and remember. This is why people who are socially withdrawn often experience both forgetfulness and a loss of motivation for daily life. There are many reasons isolation happens after 60. Some people avoid outings because of physical limitations. Others lose a spouse or have fewer loved ones nearby, leaving them feeling adrift. Some believe sitting at home watching television is enough, without realizing that the absence of human interaction slowly robs the brain of its natural stimulation. The good news is that staying connected doesn't require grand gestures. Calling an old friend, joining a small club, or simply spending time talking with children and grandchildren can make a difference. Even modest activities like a yoga class, an art group, or a community gathering provide opportunities for the brain to stay engaged through conversation. Think of it this way: a house that's always open, filled with people, voices, and laughter feels alive and welcoming. A house shut tight and silent slowly becomes cold and worn down. Our brain works the same way. With regular social interaction, it stays lively. Without it, it quickly becomes sluggish. Maintaining social connections is one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to safeguard memory. By actively nurturing relationships, even the smallest ones, we ensure that the brain continues to receive fresh stimulation to grow and adapt. Yet even when we stay connected, memory can still suffer from another hidden culprit, and this time it comes from what we drink. The next mistake we'll uncover is frequent alcohol use. Another habit that often gets overlooked but takes a serious toll on memory is regular drinking. After 60, many people still enjoy a few drinks with friends or see a nightly glass of alcohol as a way to relax. The problem is, when this becomes a routine several times a week, the brain feels the effects in a very real way. Alcohol has the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, the protective shield that normally keeps harmful substances out of the brain. Once it passes through, alcohol directly affects nerve cells, disrupting how they send signals to one another. That's why after just a few drinks, speech may slur, short-term memory falters, and people forget what they were about to do. When this disruption happens repeatedly, the brain is hit with the same injury again and again, and over time, memory declines much faster. Research has consistently shown that regular alcohol use shrinks certain brain regions, especially the hippocampus, the center responsible for storing memories and guiding recall. Shrinkage of the hippocampus is one of the hallmark features seen in Alzheimer's disease. This explains why people who drink heavily for many years often struggle with severe memory problems, sometimes earlier than expected for their age. Alcohol also harms memory indirectly by interfering with sleep. Many believe a drink helps them fall asleep, but alcohol-induced sleep is lighter, more fragmented, and robs the brain of the deep sleep needed to clear away toxins. The result is a dangerous combination of poor rest and greater buildup of beta amyloid, the protein linked to Alzheimer's. In addition, alcohol disrupts levels of B vitamins, especially vitamin B1 thiamine, which is essential for nerve cell function. A deficiency of thiamine weakens the brain and impairs memory, and in severe cases can cause Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, a dementia-like condition directly tied to alcohol-related vitamin loss. The good news is that the brain can recover to some degree when we make changes early. By cutting back or quitting alcohol, nerve cells regain the chance to rebuild their connections, and cognitive function improves. Even after years of drinking, reducing alcohol intake starting today still brings real benefits for memory and overall health. Regular drinking is clearly one of the everyday mistakes that accelerate memory decline after 60. But the encouraging part is that, like the other harmful habits we've discussed, this one can also be changed. And with change, the brain is protected and memory has a chance to recover. We've just gone through 6 everyday habits that may seem harmless, yet act as hidden enemies of memory after 60. Each one weakens the brain in its own way, leading to fading recall and a higher risk of Alzheimer's. Sitting too much and moving too little reduces blood flow to the brain, leaving nerve cells undernourished. Eating too much sugar and processed food fuels chronic inflammation, making the brain age faster. Chronic lack of sleep prevents the brain from clearing beta amyloid and stops memories from being consolidated. Ignoring blood pressure and blood sugar quietly damages the blood vessels that feed the brain. Social isolation and little interaction deprive the brain of stimulation, causing memory to weaken and mood to slip toward depression. And finally, regular drinking doesn't just damage nerve cells but actually shrinks brain regions essential for memory. The encouraging truth is that all 6 of these mistakes can be changed. We can't turn back time or rewrite our genetics, but we can start changing our lifestyle today. Every extra walk, every meal with less sugar, every deeper night's sleep, every routine health check, every conversation with loved ones, and every drink replaced with a glass of water are small actions that together build powerful protection for memory. Memory doesn't just disappear at random. More often, it's shaped by the choices we make day after day. By cutting out harmful habits and nurturing healthy ones, we give the brain its best chance to stay sharp, allowing us to live independently, confidently, and with greater joy in our later years. If you found today's video helpful, please hit like, share it so more people can benefit, and don't forget to subscribe so we can continue this journey together. And I'd love to ask you, out of these 6 habits, which one do you think you should change first to protect your memory? Share your answer in the comments, because your story might inspire many others to take action.